This video will guide you through a 7-step process in applying mindfulness to challenging emotions. By integrating these steps into your daily life, you'll feel more comfortable handling emotions such as anger, anxiety, and sadness. The very first step is to accept the emotions as they arise. Now, acceptance is commonly misunderstood. It's not necessarily an act in itself, but it's the letting go of resistance. Most of us, when we first experience an unpleasant emotion, will resist and recoil and tense up at the experience. But what that does is actually increases the impact that this emotion has on us. So as soon as we notice a difficult emotion arise, we need to learn the habit to just accept it and to be with it as it is in that moment. A really simple way of remembering this is to avoid judgment. So the moment that I notice an emotion such as anxiety, in years gone by, my thinking mind would hijack the process and weave all sorts of stories about how bad it was. Like, oh no, you can't feel anxious in this situation, you're going to have a panic attack, this is awful. And that would just make the experience worse. If we can learn to avoid judgment, we kind of dial down the thinking mind and its ability to turn the physical sensation into a storyline. The most efficient and the quickest way of stepping back from the storyline is to connect to our inner anchor, and that is the breath. So in the moment that we've accepted and we've realised a challenging emotion has arisen, we then want to just place our attention on our breath for a few moments to make sure that we slow down our breathing and just breathe deeply into the diaphragm and also let go of some tension in the body. A key lesson of mindfulness is understanding that we aren't our thoughts or our emotions, but we are the space in which all thoughts and emotions arise. This is the next step, to acknowledge that we are observing the thought or the emotion rather than it being a part of us. We can actually use a really quick tool to make this separation, which is rather than telling ourselves, I am angry or I am depressed, you just slightly alter the sentence to say, I am experiencing anger or I am experiencing depression. And this just starts to create a little distance between the experience of the emotion and our inner awareness. Once we've created some space, it allows us to then look at the individual ingredients of our experience. So rather than looking at the final meal, for want of a better metaphor, what we do is we look at the individual components. That might be different physical sensations or thoughts or a combination of both. It's just to turn our attention to being more of an observer of the experience. So if we're anxious, we might then begin to notice that our heart rate is elevated, that we're feeling kind of a surge of energy in the upper stomach and chest area, or that our palms are sweaty or any other of these physical sensations. By doing this, we're then also moving away from labels and judgments. And this is a vital step and a really, really useful approach of mindfulness, because it allows us to begin to change our perspective on these challenging emotions. This brings us to another element of mindfulness. There's no such thing as a bad thought or a bad emotion. Emotions are emotions, thoughts are just thoughts. But in the Western world, we tend to run away from unpleasant emotions and run towards pleasant emotions. So we essentially do all we can to avoid discomfort and pain and run towards comfort and pleasure. Challenging emotions are part of the human experience. So to really deal with these emotions, we have to learn to provide space for them when they arise. The more we begin to look at emotions as an opportunity for learning and an opportunity for personal and spiritual growth, they then start to lose their edge a little bit. One of the most fascinating things for me is to notice how years ago I would be terrified of certain emotions. I'd really want to try and push away depressive emotions or anxiety. And now when similar emotions arise, I can give them space and I can actually take more of a fascination and more of a curiosity towards them. This is a big step and it requires a lot of unlearning and quite a drastic change in how we view this experience. But it's a step that can really transform your life, because the moment that you take a curious and playful approach to your inner experience is the moment that you really create solid and lasting distance between these challenging emotions, and therefore your life isn't dictated by them. I wanted to include communicate as an option. This is an extra challenge, particularly if you're still getting to grips with understanding and managing these emotions in yourself. but there's great value in being able to communicate the way that we feel. If we do so, and if we do so mindfully, it helps to alleviate a sense of separation and a sense that we are our emotions. So personally, I like to do this if I'm in a situation where I feel anxious. I will just label it and I will say, I am feeling, or I'm noticing anxiety in this moment. Notice that I will still use the distancing technique, but I find that sometimes acknowledging it is actually really helpful in reducing the impact of those emotions. And when you share that with someone else, they can then also reassure you, or at least share that experience with you. One thing with mental health that is really important is that we all are open and able to express the way that we feel. So in this sense, we can all lead in our own way, and we can take the leap of being vulnerable to share the way that we feel and inspire others to feel comfortable to do the same. The next step is almost an extra layer of reassurance, and that is embracing impermanence, embracing the fact that everything changes and is always in flux. When we are experiencing challenge and emotion, this offers reassurance because we can just tap into the recollection that we felt bad before and that feeling has passed, and that this feeling will pass too. So it's just a nice reminder that even when we're feeling overwhelmed, eventually our experience will change and is changing in any given moment. Last but not least, a bonus step, which is to keep trying. Have perseverance, have self-compassion as you try and integrate these skills and you confront these emotions in a different way. Sometimes they will get the better of you. I have days where I'm completely floored by challenging emotions, and that's absolutely fine. It's part of the human experience. So just persevere and keep going, and eventually these will become new habits that will really help you increase your emotional intelligence, increase your awareness, and be able to manage challenging emotions in a much more productive way. So best of luck implementing these steps into your life. If you've enjoyed this video, please subscribe, or you can look at more content at mind.ego.com or find me on Facebook.